Welcome to Rauta and a black metal review. This time it's all about vampirism and very much on the topic because, after all, many people out there know that Nosferatu, the new version of the movie, is very much on the topic. However, this is merely a coincidence. I hope it is that this new album by Order of Nosferat, a vampiric-themed black metal, is actually having connection with the movie towards the Nightrealm of Orlok. Orlok is obviously the vampire person or creature in the movie, and here we are, Nosferatu and Orlok are mentioned here once again with this given band from Germany. Or should we talk about side project, because technically speaking, that's what it is. Now, before we talk about the band and the music a little bit more, here it is, A5 size digipack special feature of this new album, a sixth album by the band, released late 2024. And what is curious is enough that this band already had a release in 2024 prior to this one. Technically speaking, 5 years and 6 albums. That's the name of the game with this duo. And it's been funny enough that the band has been putting out a couple of albums per year. That is, during 3 different years, 6 different albums. So it's almost like there is a pause between the albums, and then when it comes out with a duo. Very unusual way to release music. So as you can see, pretty beautiful, non-glossy digipack with this version out here. So that's how the packaging looks. What about the band itself? What about the music? First, let's get the basics done. Founded in 2020 by a person known as Count Revenant here, which is mostly, but not only, known for his, main venture, Sarkrista, which is many years older, as you can see, 2011 and so forth, with quite a few albums. What is curious enough, however, that even though this is, 9 years older, there are only 3 different Sarkrista albums out. Well, some EPs to go with that. When Order of Nosferat, more like a side project, 2020, and already, like I said, 6 albums out. So 2 in 2021, another 2 in 2022. That's already a very sweating pace. Then followed by a split and another 2 albums in 2024. It's almost like, is there anybody to stop this? Like, hey, slow down a little bit. No, joking aside, obviously every artist does what he does best and wants to do, and there is no way for others to just say, like, don't do it. Now, curious enough, the drums are made by a Finnish person known mostly, I guess, these days for his work and Curse Upon a Prayer, a band that also has a few albums out, but also other bands. So, a Finnish drummer and German multi-instrumental dude, Count Revenant, vocals, guitars, bass, keyboards. So here it is. Musically, this is labeled, curious enough, black metal / dungeon synth. I would call dungeon synth more like a seasoning to this all, not like it's half and half, because it is not exactly that. And themes-wise, well, you guessed it pretty much correctly already. Vampirism is very much in the core of these topics here, and that is then again accompanied by rather dramatic images. I mean, the kind of a romantic, seemingly candelabra and all that stuff, and then rather traditional second wave look of black metal people in the band. So, towards the Nightrealm of Orlok is about 45 minutes, 9 tracks of black metal, a very modern German style. You could really say that much like the main band Sarkrista, it's definitely getting some inspiration from the Finnish scene. And when I say the Finnish scene, I literally mean the most known bands. And this is almost like a signature style these days to Finnish scene, because a lot of people are mentioning bands like, and for obvious reason, Horna, Beheksen, Satanic Warmaster, Sargeist. Even though there are a lot more, maybe these 4 bands, rather than anything else, really define the so-called Finnish sound. So when we're talking about that Order of Nosferat, and bands like Sarkrista might sound like a Finnish black metal, they don't really point towards bands like Artsgoat, Beherit, Baratrum, clandestine place, and so forth. So this is one portion of the so-called Finnish sound that is definitely having its flavor here, and that's pretty much of it. So don't get confused. Whatever Finnish means or Finnish black metal means in this context, it's just pretty much those 4 bands. Meaning it's some level of melodic yet crude, almost borderline raw black metal, what Order of Nosferat is with this album. Meaning it's not super melodic. We're not talking about the dark funerals here, and we're definitely not talking about the more symphonic takes like Oceans. So while it's melodic, it's basically that Satanic Warmaster Horna Sargeist thing of melodic black metal, not exactly the more polished, more symphonic take on the music. Also, when we're talking about production, it is really somewhat raw end. Think about, say, the earlier days of Horna, not the last 2 albums maybe, and then you have roughly the idea what this album is looking like or sounding like. So we're not really talking about the, say, early 90s Graveland or Illiern albums. We're not really talking about primitive black metal, but somewhere between the rather polished and that primitive stuff, and landing more on the rougher patches of black metal. So yeah, it is definitely sounding more 90s in that sense rather than very modern. However, sometimes these buzzing guitars are almost like a machine made. Think about I don't know if that generation of yours can remember this, but think about the 1990s home computers. When they were emulating guitar sound, it was somewhat very buzzing sound, not exactly raw and super distorted, but more like the kind of a machine made distortion, which is that very buzzing, like zzz, rather than really sharp and, circular chainsaw sound like sometimes it's referred to. Now, this is what this is really sounding. And obviously it's up to the listener whether you think that it's actually too raw or just crude enough. I think it's very, very fitting for Order of Nosferat's music, because it's really the very delicate moment when it's not too rough, but it's rough enough, really not to sound like mainstream. That is then accompanied with rather raw take of black metal vocals, really good one if you ask me, but then again, nothing like unique in flavor or style, meaning it's not like you would point at these particular vocals when you're thinking about some raw end of black metal ones. You probably go for more known names, but these are good, and that should really matter in my opinion. Songwriting isn't the most catchy, but it does its trick. I mean, it definitely delivers the kind of a darker, like let's go back to early or mid 90s kind of a vibe, and that's pretty much of it. Now, where this so-called Dungeons and element comes into play, sure, there are these somewhat haunting synth parts, which are almost like the kind of old early Graveland kind of a thing. So very, very much 90s inspired versus the nowadays thing. You would say, yeah, it's a little bit more tease or a little bit this and that, but let's be honest about it. It's still the black metal engine that is rolling here, and while those synth parts might remind you of Dungeon Synth, there are no actual Dungeons and songs so much, which you can then again pretty much see. Or pretty much almost all the songs have lyrics too, and Dungeons and singing doesn't really match that well. Now, whether you like this kind of a synthy stuff, one thing is worth mentioning, I think, it's the part where it's get a little bit uplifting, which is something not too common with this kind of a black metal. Some people might it even disturbing because it's, while not totally happy, it's almost like the opposite of very dark music. And that's kind of a peculiar, because you would really, I guess, figure out that when you want to talk about vampiristic topics and other such undead creatures, you would go really, really into the dark. But these are almost borderline romantic with the uplifting topics. So while not super happy, we're not talking about the kind of a major chord music where it's just like, yay, let's go pop. But in terms of black metal, there are plenty of bands that do this way darker. I'm not going to complain about it. It's just a matter of taste, but just kind of a word of warning, if you will. This is sometimes a little bit like, what the hell is happening here? But I guess that goes hand in hand with the Dungeons, which is, in my opinion, so often so much more hopeful, for the lack of a better word, than dark ambient, which is just sometimes just pure haunting experience in sonic patterns. Whereas this, not so much. Either way, this is not definitely the worst of Order of Nosferat, but I think the rather middle road for that. Maybe not the best, but on the better side of things. So if you liked this band previously, I think you will like this one as well. And like I said, this has been out since December 2024. So still quite fresh from the oven, but already out there with multitude of different versions, including normal CD as well as this A5 digipack and then vinyl tape. And of course, digital as nowadays thing seems to be. So which format you prefer is up to you, but I say it always, if you like it, go buy it. Check it out, and links are provided in the description box. Off you go.